Sigils are a huge part of the endgame of Granblue Fantasy Relink. They are by far one of the most important things when it comes to optimizing your damage output, and can even help define the playstyle for each of the different characters. And so in today's video I will be showing you what I believe to be the best sigils in Granblue Fantasy Relink, so that you can go ahead and spend your hard-earned materials on these ones instead of spending them on sigils that aren't as important. And of course, I'm not going to be including any of the character-specific sigils, so please do keep that in mind. So with that being said, hello everyone, my name is Dark Hero and let's get right into it. So the very first sigil that I have for you is going to be the Path to Mastery sigil, which will boost the amount of mastery points that you receive from anything you do. And this even includes completing a side quest, so whenever you are reporting those, make sure you equip the sigil. The effect can go all the way up to 30% at level 45, which is not an insane bonus, but whenever the masteries are such an integral part of Granblue Fantasy Relink, you really want to max out all of the mastery trees for all of the characters, including the collection for each of them. And then there's also the Overmastery, where you can spend thousands and thousands of mastery just trying to get better stats. Having a character that is always equipped with Path to Mastery is going to allow you to unlock all of those mastery nodes a lot faster. Keep in mind that you can only get the Path to Mastery sigil from the appraisal curio boxes, so it may take some time for you to farm these. I do have a guide on how to farm the best sigils in the game, including the ones that come from the curio boxes, so if you're interested, the link to that will be in the description. The next sigil is going to be Stamina, which is going to boost your attack based on how high your health is. At 25% HP, you will receive a measly 10.5% extra attack. But whenever you are at 100% HP, you will receive a bonus 70% attack. This is one of the easiest ways for you to raise your damage, although of course the caveat is that you do need to remain at high HP. And since that is the case, the next sigil is going to be one that helps you with that. And that is going to be none other than Tyranny, a sigil that will reduce your maximum base health in exchange for a boost to your attack. This sigil will cut your max HP by 20% at all levels, and at max level it will increase your attack by up to 50%. This is the perfect sigil to complement Stamina, because by simply having lower max HP, it will be a lot easier for you to maintain that max HP, as a potion would be able to heal more relative health if your HP bar is smaller than if it were bigger. And I'm very glad that I called this out on my very first Percival video. Keep in mind that you can of course get the same attack bonus if you were to go with Life on the Line, whose downside is a little bit more manageable if you are afraid of being one-shot, as with Life on the Line the only downside you have is that you can only heal from yourself, your allies will no longer be able to heal you. That being said, that tends to not be a huge problem, because especially in the endgame of Granblue Fantasy Relink, most team compositions do not run a dedicated healer, and as you'll see later on, you have access to more powerful things that are going to help make your character more durable, so the downside of Life on the Line isn't even that big of an issue. But again, I do prefer Tyranny over Life on the Line, simply because of the synergy that it has with Stamina. Now the next sigil on the list is going to be one that is going to vastly help you in terms of survivability and overall quality of life. And that is none other than Improved Dodge. And this one I'm going to recommend only if you can max it out all the way, but I do believe that it becomes incredibly valuable once it is at max level. Basically, this sigil is going to increase your dodge count, going from 3 dodges all the way to 7 dodges at max level, and on top of all of that, it also is going to increase your iframes on your dodge, meaning that it's going to be a lot easier for you to dodge anything. So when you have those big AoE attacks that the bosses do, think of the fire rings from the Fire Dragon, or those huge lightning beams from the White Dragon. Being able to dodge all of those with ease is going to be very helpful. That being said, if you are already very good at dodging, and you are also good at using block and perfect guarding, then you may not see the need in using the sigil, but I do believe that it is a very valuable one, especially for players that haven't put as many hours into this game, and since there are actually quite a few characters that don't have a parry in their attacks, or a way to become invincible, I do believe that Improved Dodge is a very powerful sigil, which is why it is here on the list. Now, as for the next sigil, I'm actually going to cheat and put 2 sigils on here, since they do have the same purpose, and hey, it's my list, I can do whatever I want. And those 2 are Cascade and Quick Cooldown. Quick Cooldown is a very simple sigil. It straight up reduces your skill cooldown by a certain percentage based on its level, with it at max level reducing your skill cooldown by 20%. On the other hand, Cascade is a little bit different. It's going to shorten your skill cooldown whenever you hit an enemy, and the amount that it's going to reduce the skill cooldown by is going to differ based on the attack that you use. So using basic light attacks won't reduce the skill cooldown as much compared to when you use combo finishers. So characters that often use combo finishers, or in the case of Ferry for example, that use their aerial combo strings a lot more, are going to benefit from Cascade even more so. And as for quick cooldown, the max level is 45, which means that you would need 3 different sigils maxed out to get the most benefit out of it. On the other hand, the max level for Cascade is only 20, which means that you can have a maxed out sigil, which would put you at level 15, and then have those 5 extra levels come from your weapon's Rightstone, which is what I often do. And that allows you to max out a skill that provides you with a ton of skill cooldown very easily. So even if you are running a quote-unquote low budget build, you can very easily slot this in, and while these 2 traits don't directly affect your DPS, they will be able to give you a better uptime on those buffs, or allow you to use those offensive skills more often, which will then result in even more DPS. And because there is a damage cap in the game, there's only so many offensive skills that you can slot into your build before it starts to become redundant, and so skills like Cascade and Quick Cooldown become all the more important. Now the next sigil is going to be Potion Hoarder, and I really didn't think that I was going to like this sigil as much as I do. Quite simply, it increases the stock of all of your recovery items, which means all of your potions. The max level of this sigil is 15, at which point you receive 3 extra green potions, 5 extra blue and mega potions, and 2 extra revival potions. On one hand, this is very effective in making your team a lot more survivable. You won't be spending as much time down waiting for people to pull you back up, and your critical status won't deplete, so failing a quest becomes pretty much impossible if you are running Potion Hoarder. Additionally, it comes with the very beneficial synergy that it has with stamina and also Tyranny, that since you have more items that you can consume to heal yourself, you have more ways to guarantee that you will be at max HP throughout the entirety of the quest, which means that you'll be able to guarantee the highest benefit possible from stamina a whole lot more often. You can simply tap these potions whenever you take a little bit of chip damage just to deal a little bit more damage with stamina, and you'll still have plenty of potions to use whenever they are needed. This sigil is just amazing in the endgame, and even before then it's still going to be useful, and so Potion Hoarder has found its way into being one of the best sigils in the entire game. Now the next sigil on the list is going to be a little bit of a controversial one. I'm talking about Glass Cannon. This sigil will increase your attack by 30% and raise your damage cap by 30%, which is a very big deal since damage cap is such an important thing in Granblue Fantasy Relink. However, it comes at the cost of whenever you get hit, you will be inflicted with Dizzy. And before you get any ideas, no, running Dizzy resistance does not prevent you from being dizzy from the Glass Cannon. Sadly, it does not work like that, so whenever you equip Glass Cannon, you do need to be careful to dodge out of the way of everything. That being said, I do believe that Glass Cannon is very powerful, since again you don't have many ways to raise your damage cap. And if you get a fully maxed out team in the endgame and equip them all with Glass Cannon, they're going to be very powerful. And the downside of being inflicted with Dizzy whenever you get hit isn't as big of a deal as you may think, because in the endgame a lot of times when you do get hit, you're going to be reduced down to 1 HP, or you might just die because you're running Tyranny. That's the thing with the meta builds in this game. So the fact that you're running Dizzy isn't really going to change much for you. But let's say for example that you are a player that is not very confident in being able to dodge out of the way of everything. Even so, Glass Cannon is going to be a very powerful sigil that you can simply add to your AI companions, and since most of them are able to dodge out of the way of most things, especially the characters that have a built-in dodge in their kit, you will simply be able to raise their damage cap by 30% with a single sigil. So for example, if you want to have an AI team that will carry you, just throw Glass Cannon onto Eugen, Rackam, and Narmaya or Percival, and you are going to see the insane damage output that your AI companions will be able to dish out. Again, if the downside of being hit with Dizzy is what keeps you away from using the sigil, I do recommend you to try it out because I do believe you're going to be surprised. Now the next sigil on the list is going to be a rather simple one. I'm talking about War Elemental. This one, along with Glass Cannon, you can only get from curio boxes, which makes them very rare. That being said, War Elemental is one of those that you will always want to have active on all of your characters, as it is going to make it so that all of your attacks count as the superior element. That is, except for the attacks that come from the plain element, meaning that they have no element. But what essentially this does is make it so that you will simply be dealing 25% more damage against any enemy in the game. It's by far one of the best bang for your buck sigils in the entire game, capable of getting you that much closer to hitting the damage cap, much better than many other sigils in the game. And the best thing about it is that the only downside to this sigil is how rare it can actually be. Seriously, it took me like 800 tries to get one of these, and it may be even worse for you. But if you do manage to get it, it's going to do very well, which is why I rank it as one of the best sigils in the entire game. With the only slight negative being that if you are already facing off against an enemy that is weak to your element, there is no need to run it. Now before we reach the next sigil on the list, I just want to thank you all so much for the support on all of my Granblue Fantasy Relink videos. Thank you so much for clicking on that subscribe button and for being so supportive in the comments, it really does mean a lot to me. But with that being said, the next sigil on the list is going to be Supplementary Damage. This one quite simply grants you a chance of, whenever you hit an enemy, trigger an extra hit that is going to deal 25% of the original's damage. This sigil can go all the way up to level 45, at which point you'll be able to guarantee that supplementary damage. And in case you were asking yourself, yes, it does stack with any skill that also gives you supplementary damage. This is by far one of the best ways for you to boost your damage without hitting the damage cap, since instead of raising your attack, you are quite simply adding even more attacks. Again, this is by far one of the best sigils in terms of damage output, with the only downside being that, for one, it takes 3 sigils to max out the trait, and secondly, you can only get this from the curio boxes, which makes these very rare. But much like with the War Elemental sigil, if you do get it, it's going to serve you very well. And lastly, the final sigil in the game, you already knew it was coming, it's going to be damage cap. Personally, I'm not a fan of the way that Granblue Fantasy Relink does damage cap. The game kind of dilutes a lot of build diversity that you would have by effectively reducing your damage because they implemented a damage cap into the game, meaning that past a certain point, adding sigils that will improve your damage will not do anything. And so you do need to run the damage cap sigil, which will be able to raise your damage cap all the way up to 250% more damage. It is absolutely absurd the amount of damage output that you're going to be able to increase by simply adding on this sigil, and it is a shame that you do need 4 of these sigils to be able to max this out, and actually, you won't even be able to max out this trait with only 4 sigils. You then need to add on the Ascension weapon or the Terminus weapon, or through the use of a Right Stone to be able to hit the damage cap of level 65. Again, I do not like that damage cap is so powerful, it very much limits a lot of the build creativity that we could have with this game, but because it is built the way it is, damage cap simply is the best sigil in the entire game. Let me know if I showcased any sigils that you have not been running, and if there's any that you are running that I forgot to mention, let me know which in the comment section below. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching, my name is Dark Hero, and as always, happy hunting!